Sign up for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/digital to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Digital Edition.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear pro? Amazing athletes, superstars, and wellness gurus with 100,000 followers. But the truth is, each one of us can live like a pro, even if we're not exactly pros. Imagine you can exercise regularly. You don't need a trainer for that. Know all the healthy cooking tricks, just like pros do, even without a personal chef. You can inspire your team daily, even if you're not a famous coach. And you can motivate yourself as well at the end of the day. Trust us, you can live like a pro anytime you want. You can be a pro mum or dad, a friend, a lover, a partner. And the best part is that you don't need to be a pro to live like one. Choose the healthy way, Becca. Live like a pro.
madalas ang silanganan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manduluti, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong tugaw. May dalagang tula at awit sa paglayang inamahal. Ang kasap ng watawan mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magniningning. Lupa ng araw na luwalhati ng sinta, buhay langit sa piling ko. Ang ligaya na pag may mga atin na pumatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good day. Thank you for joining us on the Manila Times Online Lifestyle Forum, where we discuss new parenting tips and techniques. My name is Tessa Mauricio Ariola, the Manila Times Entertainment and Lifestyle Editor and your co-moderator for today. Co-moderating with me is Dafort Villaseran, the Manila Times Editor. Hi, Dafort. How are you and your kids today?
Hello. Hi, we're preparing ourselves mentally and practically for the start of on-site schooling. As you know, everything's coming to a head around maybe September or so. My daughters have even been making ocular inspections of college dorms and rooms that they might be able to rent. And my son has been getting ready to attend classes at his law school.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting to hear. Now, my little boys naman are getting big na and there aren't babies anymore. But are your kids excited or apprehensive about finally going to face-to-face school again?
Ako yata yung apprehensive Kasi hirap mag-let go. When you get so used to being together after the whole pandemic episode, you kind of want to keep them protected and sheltered inside the house. So, kailangan talaga bigyan ng wings, kumbaga, to allow them to soar. Pero ako pa rin yung may sepangs problem. So yun yung nagsasoar sa akin.
Same here, I think I was thinking at least I had 2 years with them that they didn't get binata right away, I still kind of...
But I saw photos, they've gotten really...
Yeah, but they're taller. My eldest is taller than me, so I really think he has to go out there and and start, living the life a 13-year-old should be, no? But from my perspective, though, parenting these days isn't the same as when we were kids. Siguro nga mga ilang years pa lang ang nakakaraan para sa atin. Ibang-iba ang parenting style noon. Di ba ang higpit noon?
Dati yung kumbaga yung weapons of mama's destruction, di ba, yung mga chinelas, yes, mga walis tambo, kaya yung mga sinturong makakapal. Ngayon, mababantay bata ka if ever masobrahan yung pagpapalo
Sinabi mo. Well, I think that we're lucky to have the benefit of more scientific information and more info at our fingertips than ever before.
Well, as a tangent to that, I'm reminded of this expression, may you live in interesting times. It's supposed to be a translation from an Oriental saying, and basically, I think this represents the challenges that really face parents nowadays of several generations, because you have, of course, the millennial parents, and then even going as young as maybe even some, I don't know, if you have teenage parents teenagers that became parents during the pandemic, or even Gen Xers who, because of free time or togetherness, have new babies during this pandemic period. So I guess that's basically the changes in terms of how the dynamics between families and parents.
Yes. Dafort, what kind of parenting styles have you learned differently from growing up? What have you changed, the way that your parents raised you, but you didn't want to use on your kids?
Well, as you know, the old ways aren't necessarily what fits nowadays. The changes in culture, environment, and basically even the youth and how they've been shaped by the whole digital lifestyle. I think having researched a bit, they have these new methods or styles that they say where you compare emotional warmth and strictness, or you give them autonomy versus being too controlling. And at the same time, in terms of their learning, you have the structured lifestyle or something that's more free flowing or even chaotic in terms of how they experience life.
For at least 3 generations of parents, surmounting those kinds of challenges with such unique strategies is an accomplishment. That's why the Manila Times online lifestyle forum for today is titled Achievement Unlocked, Parenting for Gen XYZ. And to give us an analysis of observed trends and more in-depth insights are our guest speakers who are either successful parents or professionals from related sectors.
Yes, we're honored to have Dr. Randy Del Llosa, who's the founder and chief psychiatrist of the Randy Del Llosa Wellness Center. We also have Wilma Banaga, representing attorney Alberto Buyot, who is the chief executive officer of Save the Children Philippines. There's also with us Dr. Michelle Alignay, a psychologist. And for our fourth speaker, we also have Angeli Pangilinan Valenciano, who is the president of GV Productions Incorporated. So welcome and thank you all for being today's speakers on the Manila Times Online Business Forum, Achievement Unlocked, Parenting for Gen XYZ.
Yes,
Good morning.
Very excited to have our speakers here, and actually very excited to talk about something else today, if you know what I mean. So at least it's something new, something that we'll all be learning from. Incidentally, our forum today wouldn't be possible without the welcome support of our sponsors. Our special partners are Baker J, Beko F1 Hotel, Fuentes Manila, Greenbulb Communications, and Red Torch Communications. And our organization partners are the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Philippines, the Davao City Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or DCCI, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines Incorporated, the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, the Nordic Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy, and She Talks Peace, and of course, our media partner is the Manila Times TV. That was a mouthful, but I hope I should have just said chambers of, all of these different countries that we're very happy to have them as partners in all of our fora.
Yes, thank you very much, forum partners.
Yes, certainly the Manila Times is grateful for their being on board with us. And now, Defort, it's time to board our train of thought regarding Achievement Unlocked, Parenting for Gen XYZ, with our first keynote speaker.
Yes, our first speaker has expertise including family life, parenting, relationships, well-being, and personal growth. She sought as a speaker consultant by corporate organizations, educational institutions, brands, and other organizations. And she also heads the Light of Jesus Pastoral Care Center, a mercy ministry of peace that provides psycho-spiritual support sessions. She has published 3 books to date and is also a part-time esteemed faculty member at the Department of Psychology and in the Family Studies postgraduate program in Miriam College. So ladies and gents, let's have a warm welcome to Dr. Michelle Alignay. Thanks for illuminating us with your presence, Dr. Alignay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Defort. Thank you to Manila Times friends and everybody here in this forum. I am just glad to join you and shed some light into what we can learn about digital parenting. So let me know, is this my floor already? Is this my cue? I am just listening to your engagement, to what you're sharing earlier. Let me just share a few slides to be able to shed light into what's happening. I like what you said that, in the household, there could be the baby boomers, the Gen X, which I am a part of, and also the Gen Y and the Gen Z. Actually, the young ones now, we don't have a name for them, but they are being called now, I think, the Alpha generation. But let's call them now the digital kids. The Gen Zs and the younger ones are actually the digital gen. So this is how we're interacting now. The parent, the children, or the grandparents and the children, and digital media, we are actually a dynamic system already. So we are at the digital age, the digital kids, the digital kids are we're raising digital kids. I'm a parent of a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old also. And the parents are called the digital migrants. Take note how we're not the digital citizens. We are the digital migrants. And of course, the lolos and the lolas are the digital migrants. So anong nagiging interaction? You speak a different language. And we're surprised when we were in this online scheme of learning. You know, when I was starting to give talks during the start of the pandemic and the online, the distant learning sphere, this is the question that I usually get. Will my kids survive? Will my kids take it? Actually, they will. Why? Because they are the digital citizens to begin with. They don't need to learn digital. They are born with digital at their fingertips. Kaya pag meron tayong di ba, tech concern sa bahay, I'm sure many mommies and daddies will agree with me. Sino ba yung tinatawag natin na tech support? Ako, I call my 15-year-old son. Pero adapt na ako with technology, but there's a lot more that he can learn. And then one time, my daughter we need to get a password for the Wi-Fi, and then I cannot remember. Nobody knows. So what she did is just open some settings on the phone, and lo and behold, there is the QR code that you just need to scan. Sabi ko, how did you do that? Oh, you just need to do like this. And see, it's automatic to them. They know how to navigate the digital age. So totoo po yun. Narinig kayo sinabi yung mga Sir Dafford na tayo yung mas apprehensive, tayo yung anxious. But let me just go through with you some of the major points here. No, our interaction with technology and digital media is very much different. So let's compare the Gen X, Y, the Gen X and Y. So those are the parents. And then kung may lola at lola pa na older generation, sila yan. And there's the digital child. So during the time that we are being raised, alam natin yan. So yung mga nanonood dito, likely you are my age kung meron tayong mga high school and college. Digital or gadgets and the digital life is actually just optional. Now it's very integral. Then, we're talking about the risk. Di ba maririnig natin? For those who are watching, ano yung mga narinig niyo sa mga nanay niyo? Kung bakit you cannot have too much family computer? You cannot be using a lot of the family computer games. You're not supposed to be there the whole day. Ano yung mga statements na naririnig natin, di ba? Sabihin nila, lalabo yung mata mo, bababa yung grades mo if you're to immerse with it, because we're always looking at the risk. Now, we are actually looking for opportunities. So, look at it this way also. Optional yan dati. Remember the family computer, pag school day, tinatago ng parents. Ngayon, why integral? Hindi na pwedeng itago ng parents yung laptop or the gadget because school is there. So it's integral, and we have proven how much even our groceries, all our basic needs can be found in just, our mobile phones. We can do work remotely because of it. So it's integral already to our system. And before, it's actually about the quantity of use. Gaano mo katagal ginamit? I like saying this. Alam niyo ba yung connection ng electric fan at ng TV at family computer? Do you remember seeing that scenario? Especially during summer when it's very hot. Do you see that scenario? Bakit magkakabit lagi yun? Bakit nilalagyan yung TV and personal computer ng electric fan? Because that will tell kung gaano nakainit yung gadget at gaano katagal ginamit. So that is exactly the quantity of use. But now we're not looking at that, kung gaano katagal. We're looking at how it is used and the context of how it is used. It's used for not entertainment alone, but for education. It's not used just for luxury, for leisure, but it's actually used for learning things in school and learning even other skills, right? Ang dami natuto ngayon ng other skills because of the online sphere. And that is why we are at what we call the digital citizenship age. There is this statement by the UNESCO Bangkok, Digital Kids Asia Pacific. It's a document that came out in 2019. In 2017, I was fortunate to be part of the group of technical people who work on the digital citizenship framework that was tested in this study. You can actually see this at the Digital Kids Asia DCAP, DKAP.com. You can actually Google it. It's, a public document. So here, what did we talk about? In the DCAP, or in the digital citizenship, where we are now, we talk about how today's digital skills, including competencies, is beyond the basic information and communication technology. We go beyond just having a computer. We go beyond just navigating the web. It's beyond that. It's just not that. So let me share with you the framework that we come up with, and this was tested in the study that they made in some key areas in Asia, but it's very much, I think many parents would appreciate it better now. So what we need to look into are these 5 areas of the digital citizenship age. And one is digital literacy. Alam natin marami ng marunong pero marami pa rin hindi. So the kids are very much digital literate. We know that. But I think what we need to really emphasize, and then I'll point that out later, is the digital safety and resiliency. Yan yung concern ng maraming parents. Because if you see, there's a lot of harm in the digital sphere. And we know that. We are in Manila Times. We are a communication platform. We are responsible journalists. But there's the invention of fake news. There are people calling out, and I see a lot of values disintegration, cancel culture. Everything is happening there in the digital sphere. And how are we making our children, our teenagers, and our families digitally safe and digitally resilient? Kasi kahit nasabihin natin, it's just in the online sphere, but it actually, since digital is integral, it's affecting how we live now. Now, we also look into digital participation, and we've seen that in this election, in this pandemic, there's a lot of fundraising. And that's digital participation, how we use the online sphere to be able to participate, to be able to have a sense of agency, a sense of helping. And ito yung importanteng area, and I was one of those who was assigned in this area, the digital emotional intelligence. Among the others, they can be learned in school. But the digital emotional intelligence exactly starts at home. Exactly starts when how are we developing our kids' EQ. Kaya if you would ask me, is it safe for my kids to go to school? I am not afraid of the virus, but I'm more afraid of my kids would lack the digital emotional intelligence that will affect how they were going to be resilient in the outside world. Mas takot ako doon. Hindi natin yun matetest sa bahay. Matetest lang natin yun sa labas. Matetest natin yun kung paano sila makikibagay, makikilahok, makikitungo sa ibang tao. And because of that, ang lagi lang natin na-highlight ay ang galing nila with technology, ang galing nila with creating videos, ang galing nila. Yes, they are, because this is the age of digital innovation and creativity. But I believe that if our kids are digital media literates, they know the truth and they know what is harmful, they are intact in their values also, they can have us and they will be able to understand what is safe and not. They will be armed with the resiliency needed. Kailan ako kailangan mag-log out? Ano yung cyberbullying? Will this be leading to some sexual implication? There's a lot of cases of course, I think our friends from Save the Children will talk about that later, no? So there's a lot of cases of that, of online sexual exploitation. And if these are intact, including the emotional intelligence, and then they can participate digitally in a healthy and sound manner. So it's just not about literacy and knowing. It's not about innovation and creating, but how are we taking care of ourselves? How are we equipping our inner life, our emotional life to be able to be safe? Maybe not safe all the time, but in case that we encounter difficulties, we are still resilient and we can still participate appropriately. Okay, so let me know how many minutes do I have still. This is really a very long discussion, but let me just focus on this thought. As digital opportunities increase, risk increase. Alam yan ng parents. I think maraming parents were always afraid of the risk. And it's a given. But be aware and manage risk so it will not become harm. Gustong-gusto kong sabihin na gusto natin magpalaki ng mga anak na hindi inosente. Ayaw natin na mawala yung pag-innocence ng anak natin. Tama po yun. So ayaw natin ituro sa kanila na merong harm na nangyayari online. Pero we want to raise our kids not to be ignorant na nangyayari na pala sa kanila dahil masyado natin shineld. So if you ask me, nagwo-work ba yung dating way? Yung way dati, ang tinatawag ay restrictive mediation. Ano yan? Yung pattern ng parents natin, yun yung restrictive mediation, bawal lang. Some parents right now are still in this restrictive mediation. And what do you mean by restrictive mediation? I-restrict lahat. May nangyaring, okay, ito, classic. May nangyari na parang bumaksak ang grades kasi hindi nag-a-attend ng online class, nalulong sa gaming yung anak, or nakipag-boyfriend, nakipagpasahan ng nude photos sa boyfriend or sa girlfriend. So what does parents do? Restrictive mediation happens if you're just going to get the mobile phone. And that's usually what parents do. Kunin mo na yung digital phone, bawal kang mag-internet ng 1 linggo, 2 linggo. But there's no discussion there. There's no processing. There is no way for the child to connect what he did to the consequence of his action by what the parents what consequences did the parents put, and that is just to restrict. And what about the enabling mediation? Enabling mediation, it's about enabling the kids to think, to make decisions, enabling the kids to see the extent of their action. Yes, I created mistakes. So while the parents put some restrictions, they do not fully restrict. Why? Ayaw naman natin na maging ignorante. We want to arm them. We don't want to just expose them, but we want to arm them. So you see, we parents and kids need to communicate well. And mediation, it's about the parents being the digital mediators. Why? We know the life before that technology is not present in our lives. And our kids will not know a life without technology. Kaya kahit ulit-ulit, araw-araw natin sabihin na nung araw kami dati nabuhay, well, hindi nila kayang mabuhay ngayon without it. Because they don't know a life without technology. So we need to mediate. We need to stand. The London School of Economics has extensive studies on parenting. They call it the parenting for the digital future. They call the parents need to mediate between the child and the digital media. The parents perceive risk that digital media poses on their children. Alam namin ang risk, pero aalamin ko rin kung paano kita tutulungan. How can I effectively help you? How can I help you discern? O sa tingin mo ba makakatulong yung app na yan? Why do you have so many apps? Personally, for me, I limit my kids' app. I allow them to have some, but I don't allow them to have all. I allow them to have a taste of it kung magkamali, and then we start processing, we start supporting, but hindi pwedeng totally wala. Kasi paano natin masusubukan at mai-instill ang right digital media practices ng anak natin? How can we actually talk about things happening outside and connect them to the family values if we do not mediate properly? So we cannot, parents, just use the statement na hindi ko alam yan. Because I would like you to know that we need to upgrade ourselves, whether you like it or not. Kung ang anak natin ay tipong version 5.0, tayo ay nasa 3, it's okay as long as we're trying to upgrade. Pero we cannot have that excuse, I don't know because I did not do that before. Because the only way we can help our kids and they can effectively thrive in the digital age is for us to know the world that they are in. We cannot mediate what we don't know. As we get to know the digital sphere, we also need to get to know our children. Kailangan kilalanin natin sila. So, hindi lang pwedeng pabayaan mo sila kung anong gusto nilang gawin. No, you have to get to know and take an interest of what they're doing. Like my kids are into anime and then they would actually watch videos, the two of them. And my son would be into some games. But we made sure that we create the appropriate balance. Balance is key. Balance between the digital sphere and the real world. Balance between we getting to know our kids and getting to know their digital life, balance between our well-being and the well-being of our kids. And of course, importantly, we have to be the parent-child mediator, and communication is very, very important because mediation will not happen if we don't put the proper communication. Let me end with this. Parents are the digital kids' source of strong connections, safety, either online or offline. We are also the source of strength and resilience. If we are willing to give our kids the most upgraded gadgets, if we are willing to allow them to go into any sphere that they would like online, I challenge you parents, we need to be the strongest connections with our kids. We need to have a good relationship with them. Why? When their safety is at stake, when they're called out, when they encounter bashing, when they encounter difficulty, when many information that they consume online, it's too much for their little brains to bear, we become their source of safety. And we become also their source of strength to talk about these things, to help be their safe space, to be able to just go to us and be themselves, to be comforted. And that is when resilience happens, when we're able to journey with our digital kids. Kaya wag pa tayo magpaiwan sa kanila. Wag natin sabihin we are excused kasi we don't know. No, parents, we need to upgrade ourselves. Can you all say that with me? We need to upgrade ourselves. Why? Because we love our kids. And the role of good parents, it's just not actually to make it easy, but to make it hard. And parenting is such a tough job. And I would end with this quote that we have in a book that we write together with Dr. Quinali Chua. I'm a co-author of this book called Growing Up While Raising Pinoy Kids in the Digital Age. It's way back 2013, but it's very much applicable now. It's by Anvil Publishing, so you can just grab it in Anvil Publishing or in National Bookstore. It is up to us parents to do not what is easy, rather what is best for our digital kids. Hindi pwedeng madali. Kasi we need to make our kids not just digital literate, but we need to make them digitally resilient, digitally safe, and they have very good digital emotional intelligence so that they can digitally participate and they can digitally innovate in their digital sphere. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
Magandang araw po, Dr. Aglinay, and thank you so much for that very informative and illuminating talk. You know, I'm guilty myself of telling the children, my two boys, that we never had gadgets in my time, and that we only had yung Saturday Fun Machine sa Channel 9, yung mga cartoons doon. So I'm dating myself here. But I understand what you're saying. It is very difficult, and I can see parents who are watching us right now probably nodding their heads every time mabuko tayo ni Dr. Aglinay, that we just take away the gadgets and, we don't try to understand them. But all of these things, hopefully, we'll be able to ask more about, when she joins us in our panel discussion later on in the forum. But we move on for the moment to our next speaker. A pillar in the Philippine music business, management, and entertainment industry for over 4 decades, her leadership and stewardship of Manila Genesis Management and Entertainment and GD Productions, and in her involvement as the overseer of the Shining Light Foundation Incorporated, has built for her and her team a reputation for integrity and professionalism, creativity, and artistry. She is also a board member of CBN Asia, producer of the 700 Club, Operation Blessing Philippines, Crew Philippines, and the Diabetes Foundation. Her most cherished role now is as wife to Mr. Pure Energy himself, Gary Valenciano, and mother to Paolo and Samantha, Gabrielle, and Kiana, all of them creative artists and content creators. And most especially, Wawa to her 4-year-old Leia, her adorable granddaughter. She is also the proud older sister of Kiko Pangilinan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Angeli Pangilinan Valenciano. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Tessa, and hello to everybody. I'm genuinely honored to have been invited to this forum, and I must admit I wasn't able to prepare as much as I should have because I was so sick, very, very sick. I had election fever.
I think we all have that, having that. So as I said earlier, this is a great diversion from all of that. We'll talk about something different today.
I know, but I wanted to thank Doctora Michelle because everything she said, I was going to say. So I thank God because that cut my, I was so worried that I would go over time. But Dr. Aligday said almost half of what I had researched on because we're baby boomer. I'm a baby boomer, okay? And my kids are Gen X. I mean, they're millennials. And my nephews and nieces are, either Y or Z. And when I was asked, I said, how can I even prepare when I'm going to be so heavy into the campaign and all that? But then I realized that as the facts were laid out by Dr. Michelle, which I really agree with 100% of what she said. I totally, I researched on this. I knew that this is a crisis happening. It started with the Gen X. At that time, it was video games, right? They didn't have their mobile phones, but then I saw the crisis as we would go to church on Sundays. They were all on their iPods. They were all on headphones, and I was trying to communicate with everybody. But one was on an iPod, but they were listening to the music, and I realized there's a crisis here. And so what Doctora had said was, these are all factual, okay? What I wanted to bring forth in this is a potential solution to understand the other spectrum of what she was communicating, which is, what is a human being composed of on the basis of my faith, okay? I mean, I live by faith, married to a diabetic for 43 years, who's had diabetes, tuberculosis, hepatitis, arthroscopic surgeries. He's had a cardiac double bypass, and 5 weeks later, he had kidney cancer and had to have surgery again, taking out a portion. I mean, you live with somebody who is a living miracle, but who you need to travel with, all the time. So I became an absentee mother. But in my experience, as I was watching my son, Gabriel, who is bipolar, suicidal, by the way, and that's common knowledge, shouting, "Ang Presidente," and he was just like able to bounce back. I started thinking, what brought this bouncing back? Basically, it was the knowledge that we communicated to them. I'd like to call on my power of three. 3 words, 3 concepts that I'd like to share with everybody. First is that a human being is composed of body, soul, and spirit. And the body is our children. What do they like to dress up? They like to, they even want to live on their own condos now. Nobody wants to live with their parents today. And even when they turn 18, they know that they're adults, right? So they like organic food now. This whole generation is not the chicharon generation. Tayo yung mga baby boomers, we were not that health conscious as much as they are, because technology has given them a certain amount of knowledge, and we all know that knowledge is power. So knowing that knowledge is power, this generation is the most self-educated. They know more than we do. And which is why when Doctora was saying that when she has a problem, she will turn to her children. I will let you know that 5 minutes before we went into this, my nephew, who is a Gen Y, told me that, oh, what's the link? I don't have the link. What do you mean you don't have the link? I gave it to you. It's not there. We were in a state of major panic. And it was my nephew. I don't know what he did. We didn't have the link. He went onto the chat. He went onto this. And I was just like feverishly dying. I said, what a disaster. Jelly should have been prepped. I was blaming myself. Boom, he solved it. So our kids know more than we do in many ways. So in my company, Manila Genesis and GB Productions Inc., I have a crisis between the legends who are experienced, who know, so much of the industry, and this Gen XYZs who know before you even say it, they already know the answer because they found it out already. So there is this crisis of, is there loyalty among the XYZs, right? So anyway, back to body. Okay, so they take care of their vitamins, they do their workouts, everything. What is the soul? The soul is that which is connected to your brain, your emotions, your everything based on your education, based on your the books you read, the movies you watch, the music you listen to. And these kids, censorship today is almost nil in a family. Because while you're snoring there, they're on their phones. You know what I mean? So how do you take care of their souls? When my kids were young, I thought, should I put them in Marinol and Assumption or Ateneo Lasal? I decided to put them in small, mass-based schools, Christian schools, where they learned the word of God. But their barcadas were taking jeeps, and my son Paulo would go on a jeep to school sometimes without telling me, But I tried to give them a different kind of education. Kiana would ask me, why did I put her in this school? But you know what? They all talk in Tagalog. So education is part of your soul. So you give them a good education, you give them good gadgets. Yes, that's part of, how they're able to either positively add on to their soul or negatively bring in those uncensored sites and music, books, and movies that they watch. They always laugh at Mama because Mama would be watching Spider-Man and that's New Age. And they go, Mama, you're always saying it's so demonic. And I'll say, but that's wrong. Why is he cursing in every 10 minutes the F word? And I'm like, what the? But you know what? This is the reality. Our kids are faced with uncensored everything. So what is the third part of the human being, which I believe is the least fed? It is the spirit. And what is the spirit? The spirit is that which is connected or disconnected to God. And how do you nurture the spirit? For the Gen XYZs, tayo mga baby boomer, we go to church every Sunday. We have sometimes our connect groups, Bible studies. But what about these kids? How have we trained our kids? The spirit is nurtured through prayer, through praise and worship, through the word of God, through Bible studies. Do we do that? Did we do that to our children? We gave them the best schools. We gave them cars sometimes. We gave them gadgets. But how did we take care of this? Because body, you eat 3 times a day, merienda, midnight snack. You take all these vitamins. Now I have to take vitamin D3, vitamin C for COVID, vaccine. At the end of the day, but how did you nurture their spirit? So when you say the power of 3, do you understand when they say, as Christians or Catholics, we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Father is God. The Son is Jesus. Who on earth is the Holy Spirit? Right? When Jesus was crucified, three days later, he was supposedly resurrected. Our truth is he was resurrected. And that time, the Spirit came down on earth. But what is that Spirit? Because basically we have our consciences, right? So for our Gen Z, XYZs, how do you communicate that? I want to give you 3 Bible verses that I have believed in, that has been my basic belief for my 3 kids, which is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. But it did not say, while he is young, he will also not depart from it. The basic thing here is, you know that from 1 to 7, these are the greatest years for you to train your XYZs. And if you don't do that, you will reap the consequences of your lack of training for them to take care of their spirit. And when you say, when he is old, what about the middle years? My 2 children, Kiana and Gabriel, are seeing psychiatrists because they are part of that percentage of young kids who have mental health problems. My son, Gabriel, tried to commit suicide a number of times. And I witnessed my husband, Gary, carrying Gabriel on his back, piggyback, bringing him to a hospital to detox. Did we make a mistake? For sure. I was an absentee mother because I had no choice, no to self. I had to choose between the life of my husband, who daily was taking insulin, so daily had the risk of hypoglycemia. He has had, at the very least, 10 near-death experiences. And I had to be with Gary everywhere in the world. So my 3 poor kids were sometimes raised by their yayas, who are sometimes more popular than me among their fans, Yaya Linda and Yaya Myra, Yaya Christine. And yet, because when they were 1 to 7, we would read to them. We would read Bible verses to them, Bible stories. So to all of you new young parents out there, read to your children. And I thank the Lord that my 3 children read up to today. You know, that is I said power of 3. That's the first verse, right? And take note, please, when my son Paulo was a rocker and was singing, all these head banging, I was having quiet heart attack saying, Lord, where did I go wrong? You know why? Please, never compare your children to their parents or grandparents, because my kids were bullied all their lives compared to their father, Daddy Valenciano. And you know the power of my husband's name and how their teachers, one teacher called my son Bulok. And so I realized that for every negative word you tell your children or the teachers tell, you have to reinforce it with 14 positive ones. So when you say train the child in the way he should go, from 1 to 7, most important years, and after that, you do what you can, but you can't be God in their lives. So when I say the second parenting verse, and this I had to teach to Kiana, because everywhere she went, people would say, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful. And I remember when I was a kid, my sister was a valedictorian. My third sister, the third sister was a top 10. And I would always be introduced. Oh, look, this is Maricel. She's a valedictorian. This is Nenet. Both of them are top 10. This is Angeli. She's so pretty. I felt so bobo. My sister felt so ugly. You can imagine what your words say. So when you say anything to your children, remember that be positive. And today you can just send them all kinds of positive memes and verses. The second verse is 1 Samuel 16:7, which I always told Kiana, please memorize this. And this is when they were choosing David, the shepherd, over the taller sons of Jesse. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. I share this, and this became Kiana's life verse. That even if she walks a beautiful woman, she knows that that is not the important thing in life. You can see her with her posts on Instagram and all that. But she told me, Mama, I found the church in LA, and I go to church every Sunday. I never told her. I never even told her, go to church every Sunday. Because at a certain level, at the age of 18, they know they're adults. To the parents out there, do not be prescriptive. Do not be controlling. Because when they're 18, 19, 20, leave them up to God. Because you know what? Our role now is to pray. Kasi hindi na pwede yung sasabihan mo yung 25-year-old. Do you notice none of them want to live with us? They want to live in their small little condos or rooms. They'd rather, at the age of 21, Kiana, she rented a room. She was renting a small little condo. And I said, let them go. To the parents out there, let your children go. And the last is Ephesians 6:2, honor your father and your mother. I always used to teach that to my kids because there's a promise that comes after that in the Bible, so that your life will be okay if you honor your father and your mother. These are the three power verses. And another verse pala is, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. When you say instruction, you're talking education. And when you talk education, you're talking about a certain manual that you have to read. And what is that manual for the Spirit? The manual for the Spirit is the Word of God. So for me, I suggest memorize it. Memorize key verses that will teach you throughout your life. And those, for me, this Gen Z, is like when I heard Hannah Pangilinan, she's how old? She's 21. Yesterday, we were all together. And she said, Tita, I never realized politics was like this in the Philippines. They were so detached. But because their uncle ran for vice president, they were doing house to house, listening to the plight of the poor. And she goes, because of this, I want to be involved. I want to be involved in politics. There is a sleeping giant, the youth, that has been awakened with everything that has happened. And let me tell you, when you think of the power of three, which is the body, soul, and spirit, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and you think of these three power verses that I share with you, for me, this is a solution to those who would like to believe that faith, hope, and love are most important, more than anything. And remember, we were given 2 sets of eyes, 2 sets of ears, but 1 mouth. The lips. Only 1 mouth, so you shut it up. You cannot shut your lips, your ears. You can shut your eyes. Listen to your children, because that's the only way the XYZ will know that you love them. Because love is most important than anything else. For me, the solution to the body, soul, spirit phenomenon, I think it's a phenomenon, because many people forget about it, forget that, we kind of like forgot about the spirit side. For me, that's most important, because the body will die, the spirit will live forever. And for me, if you ask me about the solutions we can give to our XYZs, based on the concerns of Dr. Michelle, the spirit must live forever. And for me, this is the solution that we have to give our children. Teach them the way they should go. They will not depart from it. I mean, I was going to give all the suggestions and the solutions of Doctora, but she said it all. So I figured, okay, I'll just focus on what I feel is a potential solution to the crisis that we face today.
Yes.
And a very good solution.
Yeah, and very, very enriching, actually. But, I really do have to say that we raise our hats to you, Anjali, for being that strong and amazing woman that you are, having gone through so much with Gary V's illnesses, and then all of these things that you've been dealing with, the generation of your children. More power to you, and I think you have really inspired so many of us here today. So I think the key message there is, you try to lay the foundation for your children as early as possible, as young as they are. And, you just have to pray that they bring that with them when they grow older. Right, the fourth? Did you learn a lot from that? Yes. Actually,
yes. It's a wake-up call, actually, in terms of the things that you need to balance out.
Yes. So there's actually in our chat, even among the hosts, the panelists, I think Dr. Alignay just said, "Thank you, Ms. Anjali, you inspire us to carry one." See, so truly an inspiring talk from Ms. Anjali Pangilinan Valenciano. But we will move on. We have two more speakers to four. We'll introduce them, and later on, I'm sure Anjali will be joining us in our forum with the rest of the speakers.
We have many questions later, yes.
Yes, I'll introduce our third speaker is here to present. Our third speaker is here to represent Attorney Alberto Jesus Muyot, the Chief Executive Officer of Save the Children Philippines, who has been protecting and supporting children in need in the country for the past 40 years. As the name of their organization implies, they save lives in emergencies and they speak up for children's rights. They share a global vision and strategy for creating better lives locally and internationally. Everyone, I give you Ms. Wilma Banaga to deliver the presentation of Save the Children Philippines. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning po. Good morning, Tessa, and good morning sa lahat. And thank you for that introduction. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay, so, okay. So I'm here today to talk about positive discipline in everyday parenting, since we're talking about parenting. And this is parenting program that we at Save the Children have been promoting since 2007. So we've been teaching parents from different generations about positive discipline. And this means actually how to discipline your children in non-violent ways. So for people who are not familiar with our organization, we are a child rights-based non-government organization that's been working here in the Philippines for at least 40 years. No? So we're locally registered as a Philippine NGO, but we are also part of an international or global alliance of Save the Children organizations that has been in existence globally for at least 100 years. So we celebrated our centennial in 2019. So we have programs primarily focusing on children's health and nutrition, education, and child protection. And that's where I'm going to link this discussion on positive parenting or positive discipline, because this is linked to our work, our interventions for child protection. So children do have the right to be protected as enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And parents actually also have a role in ensuring that children are protected from all forms of harm. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child also recognizes the role of these parents, and that it actually talks about the need for the state, for the government to provide support to the parents so that they can, so they're able to fulfill their responsibilities for rearing their children. So that's one of the things that Save the Children also does, is that we help support the government in providing parenting sessions and supporting parents so that they will be able to do their jobs right, no, in rearing their children. So we talk about disciplining according to a child rights perspective, and these are some of the examples of how this can be done. And that's why we are talking about positive discipline. For us in Save the Children, we don't look at discipline, the word discipline, as being the same, one and the same as punishment. Para sa amin, discipline means teaching and guiding children, and that this is not something that you only do when a child has committed a mistake. No? Because when you teach and when you guide children, you do this, of course, every single day. No, from the time that the child is an infant up to the time that they are teenagers. No? So it's an approach to parenting that teaches children and guides their behavior, and at the same time, respecting their rights as human beings, their right to healthy development, protection from violence, and of course, recognizing that they also need to participate in their own learning and development. So what we're going to discuss right now, the concept of positive discipline, is based on what we know about children's healthy development, what we know about effective parenting, and of course, the principles of children's rights. What is positive discipline? When we're talking about positive discipline, we're not saying now we should be letting children do whatever they want. Positive discipline is not about that. It's not about not having rules. It's not about quick reactions, and it's not about punishments. When we talk about positive discipline, we're talking about helping them to develop self-control, because whether we like it or not, we're not always going to be there beside them to tell them what to do and what not to do. So they need to learn this. They need to learn self-discipline. And in positive discipline, that's what we also want to teach them. It's about communicating clearly with our children, being able to express where we are coming from, and also allowing them to communicate with us and also tell us where they're coming from. It's about respecting them, in mutual respect, and teaching them how to respect not just other people, but also respecting themselves. And it's also about teaching them values and teaching them skills that they would need to be successful at adulting. I just learned that word recently. So when we go and teach parents, we talk to them about this framework. So we call this the positive discipline model. And it is a framework, a guide that can be applied in different situations. So para sa amin, para ma-practice mo yung positive discipline, we all have to start with identifying long-term goals for child rearing. So every parent should think about this. Ano ba yung gusto nilang maging matutunan ng mga bata? Ano yung mga long-term goals natin para sa mga bata? And we'll talk more about that. And it's also about providing warmth and structures. We talk about providing, how do we show warmth? And in the Philippines, we talk about, when we're talking about providing warmth, it means pagpapakita ng pagmamahal at pagkalinga sa mga bata. And at the same time, you're also providing them structure. We translate this into pagbibigay ng impormasyon at gabay, paggabay sa mga bata. And then, of course, children are, although they have similarities, they also have differences that we need to recognize. Hindi pare-pareho ang mga bata, They have different capacities for learning. They think differently. They have different personalities, different temperaments. They have different interests. All these things we need to understand. And because this will provide us the information that we need to understand how we can provide them the appropriate support. And then we'll talk about problem solving, because like it or not, there will always be conflict between the parent and the child. And what we are promoting in the positive discipline model is that rather than taking a punitive approach when there's conflict, we encourage parents to take a problem-solving approach instead. And then if you will notice, we have here self-regulation and co-regulation, and I'll talk more about that and how that is linked to positive discipline. So let's talk about identifying long-term goals. So when we're disciplining children, because we say disciplining is teaching them and guiding them, and like teachers, di ba, you have to set a layunin, your objective, for what you're going to teach. And in the positive discipline model, the foundation of how you're going to discipline your children will be your long-term goals for child rearing. Ito yung maggagabay sa'yo dapat doon sa kung paano mo sila tuturuan at disiplina on an everyday basis. So to be able to set your long-term goals, these are the two questions that you need to ask yourselves, no? Una, what kind of people do you want your children to be? No, you have to envision your children. What kind of people will they be like? No, and what kind of relationship do you want to have with your children when they're already grown up? No, this will help you set your long-term goals. So these are some of the examples of the long-term goals that parents, in different parts of the country have shared with us, when we taught them positive discipline. And I'm sure this will also be included in the goals that you will later on identify for your kids. So a lot of parents, they've said, I want my children to be responsible, to grow up responsible people, maging independent, they can marunong silang tumayo sa kanilang sariling mga paa, marunong silang magdesisyon on their own. Na I want my kids to be respectful, respectful to others, lalo na sa mga nakatatanda, at maging respectful din sa kanila, sa sarili nila. Na I want my children to be peace-loving or non-violent, or to be good spouses, good partners, and then in terms of relationships, syempre maraming mga magulang, they want to have a close relationship with their child, na kahit adults na yung kanilang mga anak, close pa rin sila. And the children are still, they still trust their parents, that they can still come to their parents when they need advice. So ito yung mga na-share ng mga magulang sa amin. So now that, once you've set your long-term goals, once you've identified this, then this is going to be your guide. So if you want your children to grow up to be a responsible adult, or maging responsable, maging independent, then every single day, iniisip ninyo kung paano nyo ba tuturuan ang inyong mga anak kung paano maging responsable. Ano bang skills ang kailangan ko maituro sa kanila? Pagiging respectful, paano ko ba ituturo yung pagiging respectful, yung mutual respect? And we have to remember that when we teach children this, yung paano maging responsable, paano maging respectful, hindi lamang natututo ang mga bata mula doon sa mga bagay na sinasabi natin sa kanila, natututo din sila mula sa mga bagay na ang mga actions na ating ginagawa. So, if we want to teach them respect and to be independent and to be responsible, kailangan din nating i-model itong behavior na ito, bukod doon sa tinuturuan natin sila ng something, through the things that we're telling them, So model good behavior, we always tell parents this. So, ang nangyayari kasi in reality, lalong-lalo na kapag may conflict, let's say a child has committed or done, there's a behavior that we didn't like, a behavior that causes to be angry or frustrated, syempre ang taas ng emotions, di ba? Ang taas ng stress level. Often, parents actually respond in very aggressive ways towards their children, which often will not really lead to a positive change in the behavior. Katulad nitong nasa diagram natin, umiiyak yung bata, na stress ang magulang, ang adult, nagalit siya, nag-respond siya ng aggressive way. Sa halip na tumigil, maaring siya ay mas iiyak, lalong lalakas ang iyak. At lalo kang magagalit, lalo kang masistress kasi mas tumindi yung behavior na hindi natin nagustuhan. At kadalasan, ang nangyayari pag hindi na natin nakokontrol yung ating emotions, mas tumitindi din yung ating response. Yung isang palo in the beginning, maaaring dalawang palo na or maaaring mas malakas na, no? Na pagpalo. And that's not going to stop the cycle of this kind of behavior, this cycle, no? So it can lead to the child, again, intensifying yung kanyang emotions din. Kasi yung mga bata rin ay nasistress, no? Nasistress din sila. And an aggressive response from the adult can also cause stress to the child. So it's going to be a cycle, no? And that's why what we're saying is when there is conflict like this, no, we need to find a way to, one, regulate our emotions, manage our emotions, and avoid responding in an aggressive way. We have to take a problem-solving approach rather than a punitive approach. Challenging yon kasi minsan at the heat of the moment, di ba, pag galit na galit ka, mahirap din kontrolin minsan yung ating emotions. But we have to. It's one of the things that we need to really learn to control and to manage because again, we're not saying na in positive discipline, we're not saying that bawal magalit, no? Kasi it's very biological. It's a natural human emotion. Magagalit at magagalit tayo, mapofrustrate tayo. But we also know that we need to be able to control these emotions, no? Para tayo ay makapag-isip ng maayos. Hindi ba? Because ang tendency if we're not able to regulate our emotions, nakakagawa tayo minsan or nakakapagsabi ng mga bagay na maaaring makapanakit sa ibang tao at later on pinagsisisihan natin ito. And so for us to, break that cycle, we have to make sure that we are giving ourselves time, giving our thinking brain time, to relax, to calm down so we can think clearly at maisip natin kung ano ba yung mas effective na solusyon doon sa conflict. And so we need to really regulate our emotions. And of course, in that process, we're also teaching children how to manage your own emotions and how to manage anger, how to respond in a non-violent way when there's conflict. And that's part of modeling the good behavior that we want them to learn. So, identifying long-term goals, we have to set our goals for our child reading, and we use this. We have to use this as our guide on how we're going to discipline children on an everyday basis. So we never lose sight of our long-term goals. Kasi lalong-lalo na kapag may conflict, we have to look at these situations, mga challenging situations like this, as opportunities to work towards our long-term goals. It's an opportunity to teach as values, teach skills, model behavior, So let's look at conflict with children as something that is a teachable moment, That's going to contribute to achieving our long-term goals. And then, of course, we have to learn how to provide warmth and pagpapakita ng pagmamahal at pagkalinga. This is not really something new to Filipino parents, And this is the example of what it means, paano ba magpakita ng pagmamahal at pagkalinga? Basically, we're saying safety and security. Show your child, na mahal niyo siya and unconditional love kahit nakakommit siya ng mistake, hindi nagbabago yung pagmamahal ninyo sa kanya. Being considerate, being affectionate towards your children. This is very important because this develops the relationship between the parent and the child, which is very important, for them to learn to listen to you. Ang mga bata, nahihirapan silang makinig sa atin or sumunod dun sa ating mga advice kapag hindi maganda yung relationship nila with their parents or with the adult who's taking care of them. Remember that in a warm and caring climate, children do want to cooperate more with their caregivers. Kahit naman tayong mga adults, hindi ba? If we like somebody, we will listen to this person more. So it's like that with children. So we have to build that good, warm, and caring relationship and environment within the home. And then we provide structure. Providing structure is providing them information and guidance. And this is what structure means, So it's also about, it's okay to provide, to have rules within the household. Okay na mag-set ng rules. Kailangan i-clarify natin kung anong mga expectations natin for their behavior. No, but when we set rules and limits, we need to explain this to children para naiintindihan nila why complying with these rules is important and why it's good for them, no? Rather than expecting children to just follow you blindly, no? So kailangan nag-explain tayo ng mga bagay-bagay sa mga bata because remember, we are teaching them. So here it's also involving them in problem solving and decision making because again, we're trying to train them, right? We're teaching them the skill of decision making and problem solving. So it's very important to also involve them in that process. So providing structure is it's also like scaffolding. You're familiar with the concept of scaffolding. So it's teaching them step by step, no? So we have to scaffold their learning, no? Teach them step by step. Minsan talagang kailangan mong gabayan, minsan kailangan pa ulit-ulit, and this really requires patience, but this is needed for us to be able to teach children. Again, warmth is providing them or ensuring their safety and security, and structure is providing them information and support. And if we provide warmth and structure, this will help us achieve our long-term goals for child rearing. So the next step is, of course, understanding how children think and feel. We need to understand, know your children, understand who they are, what they want, what makes them tick, no? Paano sila mag-isip, anong importante sa kanila at a particular point in time, because this will give you the information that you need, no, to be able to provide them the support that they would need, no, at a particular stage in their development. So we need to observe and listen. And that would require us really spending time with our children and really talking to them then, no, on a regular basis, no, para naiintindihan natin kung ano yung iniisip nila at anong gusto nilang gawin sa buhay nila. So now I'm showing you what do we call this, the building blocks for a healthy child development. I'm not going to go through the different developmental stage of children, but it's very important for parents to have a bit of understanding of child development. So I encourage you to read up on that. But here, I want to highlight the importance of building attachment and trust. So kikita ninyo dito sa ilalim, no? Yung attachment and trust, ito yung pundasyon, the foundation of your lifelong relationship with your children. So it is very important that even during infancy, when they're still babies, when they're very young, no, na nade-develop na natin yung attachment and trust, no? Because ito yung makakatulong sa inyo para mag-move on doon sa susunod na level. So when they become toddlers, you need to teach them respectful communication skills. When they're in preschool, it's teaching them nonviolent conflict resolution and independence, because now they're going to daycare, they're meeting other children, so magkakaroon na sila ng conflict with other kids. So it's very important to teach nonviolent conflict resolution. And then they will move on to middle years. They're going to go to the big school. And here we need to be able to teach them respect for feelings, seeking information. And of course, preteen years is when they will experience puberty. At dito na yung pumapasok yung, they become very self-conscious, concerned about what other people will think of them. And hopefully this is the time that we'll be able to build their confidence so that when they reach the adolescent stage, which normally we see as a very challenging time, no, for a lot of teenagers and for parents as well in terms of dealing with teenagers. Ito ang importante na sa kanila dito ay understanding who they are, no, finding their own identity seeking yung importante sa kanila dito. So we need to prepare them for that time, that stage of their life when they're going to be thinking about who they are, trying to find out what they want to do in their lives and what makes them tick, what their plans are for the future. So we need to be able to prepare them for that. And mahirap mahirap i-build itong respectful communication skills and nonviolent conflict resolution kung wala kayong magandang relationship with your child, no? So again, importante yung pag-build ng attachment and trust in the early years. Maraming mga magulang nagtatanong sa amin, kung teenager na yung anak ko and I wasn't able to develop attachment and trust or good, warm, caring relationship with my child, is it too late for me? At ang lagi naming sinasabi, no, it's never too late, no? Kahit teenager na siya, kailangan mo lang bumalik doon sa attachment and trust. Because remember, mahirap mag-provide ng structure, mahirap mag-provide ng guidance sa mga bata kung hindi na-build beforehand yung isang magandang relationship. So if you think that you were not able to build this early on in their lives, just go back to it. Attachment and trust. And earlier, I talked about providing warmth. Just focus on that, no? Build the attachment and trust and then move on. So you can, you can build your relationship with your child pa rin. So lastly, is problem solving. Again, I said there will always be conflict between a parent and a child, and what we encourage parents to do is to take a problem solving approach, no? Kasi mas effective yun. Taking a punitive approach is kind of like a palliative, no? Di ba parang band-aid na tinatapalan mo lang, pero kung hindi mo naman ginagamot yung root, yung pinaka-dahilan ng problema, no, hindi rin siya gagaling, no? Mauulit at mauulit lang siya. And this is how you do problem solving. So let's say if you have a conflict with your child, syempre magsisimula ka sa emotion regulation. So importante na naiintindihan din natin yung signs, no, na tayo ay sobrang stress na, and it's time to give ourselves some time to, calm down and think first. Give ourselves time to think, and also give your child the time to think din. Kasi kung in distress din siya or mataas din yung stress level niya, then kailangan din niyang mag-regulate ng kanya emotions, no? Bago kayo mag-usap, no, tungkol dun sa conflict, bago kayo mag-usap ng kung anong gagawin ninyo. So manage your emotions, and then you have to identify the problem. Ano ba talaga ang problema? No, ano yung naging source ng conflict natin without being judgmental and without jumping to conclusions, no? Ito yung importante gawin natin kasi kailangan nating ugatin. Ano ba yung mga posibleng reasons why the child has behaved in this way? You need to understand that. You need to think about that. And you can also ask the child, no? Kung na-miss niya yung curfew na napag-agrihan ninyo, hindi siya dumating ng 9:00 at yun ang curfew niya, find out first. No, bakit ganon? Bakit hindi mo na-meet yung curfew? So that you will know kung ano ba yung talaga yung root ng problema, and you can find a solution to that para next time hindi na ito mangyayari ulit. So you can involve the child in identifying possible solutions as well, no? So remembering, we always have to remember at the back of our minds nandiyan yung ating long-term goals. We always have to remember that we're teaching children how to be respectful, how to be independent, how to, do proper decision making. So kailangan in the way that we respond to this conflict, tinuturo natin yon in that process. So nonviolent conflict resolution, hindi natin sisigawan ng bata, no, during a conflict like this. We have to manage our emotions kasi nagmo-model din tayo ng good behavior. Tinuturo din natin in this situation, this particular situation, kung paano mag-resolve ng conflict na hindi nyo kailangan magsigawan or maging aggressive towards each other. And that's how you do problem solving. So involving the child is important because we're teaching them problem solving skills. So everyone can be a problem solver, and it's very good to start doing this while the children are still young themselves, kahit with very simple problems na maaring ma-encounter ng bata. Turuan natin sila kung paano gamitin yung problem solving process. So again, positive discipline is teaching children with respect and dignity. It's recognizing their right to voice out express their opinions, and to participate in their own learning and development. It's protecting them from physical and emotional harm, and also teaching them how to manage conflict without using power against a weaker person, no? Because ito yung usual na importante, di ba, sa mga magulang when disciplining children. Yung thinking na dapat ang adult laging ang may power doon sa relationship. Dapat lagi siya yung may control. At pag hindi sumusunod yung bata, kailangan i-coerce or i-punish, no, para sumunod. This is how most parents think about discipline. And this is what we're trying to promote. No, instead of that, maybe we can focus on this, scaffolding the children's learning, teaching them step by step, no, getting the child to cooperate or collaborate with us rather than obedience or blindly following whatever it is that we say because we're adults, we know better. No, but children also know what's good for them, and we need to listen to children and consider that in making decisions that affect their lives. So we have to do problem solving instead of punishing children. And we have to act like mentors, no? People who are teaching our children. So ito yung aming pinopromote pagdating sa positive discipline, this kind of thinking when disciplining children. So lalong-lalo na ngayon, no, na we're in a pandemic and mas may dagdag pa, added stress sa lahat sa atin, no? Hindi lang sa ating mga adults, kundi sa ating mga anak din, kundi sa mga bata. No? Children are also in distress, and we need to make sure that we're able to comfort them at this point in time. No, we're able to spend time with them and teach them how to relax, no, how to go through this situation and remember that violence is never a solution to any problem. And if we recognize, and we have to learn to recognize when we would need support, because there are other people, experts who can support us if we need further support for us and for our children. So we hope you can support Save the Children in our call to eliminate all forms of physical and humiliating punishment, and also help us in promoting positive discipline by starting to practice this in your own lives. Thank you.
Thank you for that enlightening presentation on positive discipline and for us to learn how to be warm, problem-solving parents, Wilma. Thank you. Please stay on till the end because we'll answer questions at the open forum after our fourth speaker. So now allow me to first introduce our very last speaker. He is a life coach, counselor. He's also a psychotherapist, clinical psychologist, physician, psychiatrist, and osteopath. With compassion and competence, he helps people heal from their physical, emotional, mental, rational, relational, and spiritual problems. Through the years, he has assisted thousands of people in attaining their fullest human and spiritual potential. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our last speaker, Dr. Randy Misael Sebastian de los. Randy, the screen is now yours.
Hello, thank you, the fourth. Let me put on my screen first, my PowerPoint. Okay. Can you see it now? The fourth, can you see my...
Yes, it's visible. Go ahead.
Okay. You know, the fourth, the thing about being the last speaker, no, is that, like what Ma'am Angeli said, everything had already been said. So I'm kind of going to deviate from, the sequence, and let's see what I can come up with.
By all means, yes, go ahead.
Sige. Yeah, I want to share a little bit about myself muna. Of course, my primary training was as a psychiatrist. Okay, ang ibig sabihin nito, dumaan muna ako sa pagiging doktor, and then I specialized in psychiatry. And then I realized, ang dami palang mga weaknesses ang psychiatry. Okay? Kasi ang psychiatrist, ang pag-iisip niya, tungkol lang sa medication. Okay? Pero ako, I came from a background of BS psychology sa college. And then natutunan ko na, hindi lang pala medication ang kailangan. Ang mas importante, no, is to get to the roots of the problems, immerse yourself in the life of your client, in the patient. And then, habang nag-i-immerse sa root ng problem, doon mo mas malalaman kung ano yung solusyon sa problema. Kesa yung pag-iisip ng psychiatrist na nagbibigay lang kaagad ng medication, nagda-diagnose, and then medication kaagad. So, for me, parang I got the best of both worlds. Kasi kung hindi ko magawa ang solusyon through psychology, then nagagawa ko through psychiatry and vice versa. Okay. Now, part of my training in psychology and psychiatry is being a family therapist. And if there's one thing I learned from being from a family therapist is napaka-complicated ng buhay ng mga tao. Especially, buhay ng pamilya. Okay? Ito yung parenting experience na sana gusto natin eh. Sana ang gusto natin parenting experience ay yung caterpillar ride. Di ba? Up and down, up and down. Pero sometimes, yung pagiging parent ay nagiging roller coaster. Yung up and down sa pamilya, buhay pamilya, gets very extreme. Okay? Siguro okay lang kung mataas and happy ang mga tao. Pero sometimes the parenting experience or the family experience can be quite very low. And mabuti na yung yung diagram na yan yung up and down na roller coaster. Pero sa totoo lang, the family experience can actually be convoluted. Hindi lang up and down, pero round and round. And so even doing family therapy can be quite a challenge. Okay, what's one of the challenges? One of the challenges is that sa pagkabata, it's easier to take care of children because there's something like pets. It's not nice to hear, but that's the truth. Because pets are easier to take care of, they'll follow you. You just take care of them. You can set rules, etc. as much as possible. As long as may disciplinary program, then they'll be within the bounds of the rules that you set. But you see here's a picture, they become toddlers, and then they become children, early childhood and late childhood, and then finally they become worse than toddlers. They become teenagers. And this is where we lose our grip over them. One of the reasons why teenage years is very difficult is because hindi lang naman sila ang nagbabago eh. Hindi lang sila ang dumadaan sa mga stages sa development. Actually, tayo rin bilang parents, we are developing as older adults. In fact, sa totoo lang, ang sabi ng isang research, yung pagiging pag-abot natin sa midlife is not a matter of age raw. Yung pagdating natin sa midlife is when our children become teenagers. When they become teenagers, something ticks inside of us, and then it starts a crisis in us. And then that's when we experience our midlife crisis. So can you see, when we start becoming teenagers and their life goes haywire, magsasabay yung buhay natin na magiging haywire din. And then that's when the roller coaster gets to be very convoluted. Okay? I have a lot to say about midlife, For one thing, yung midlife crisis sometimes, or most often, is a rehash of our earlier issues natin. Okay? Kung ano yung mga unresolved issues ng pagkabata natin, nabubuhay ulit sa midlife. And so, here we are grappling with our own issues as we grapple with the issues with our spouse and with the children. Okay, I'll share a little bit about adolescent developmental tasks. This was already mentioned a little bit earlier. Ano bang nangyayari kapag nagiging teenager yung bata? Meaning of life. Their eyes start to open, and then they realize, oh, life is not that simple. Okay, there must be more to life than just eating and playing and then attending school and being with the family. The fourth, and everyone, yung meaning of life, no, is not as simple to find now than before. Dati, medyo black and white. Kasi sinasupply sa atin yung meaning of life ng religion. Pero ngayon, with the internet, you know, children, teenagers, and everyone realize, hindi pala kasing clear-cut ang meaning of life. Lahat ng religion nasa internet And so, you know, one of my main questions now when I talk to clients is, so what's your religion? And many of them now, kahit bata, will say that they're agnostics. Many will say they're agnostics. Pero not all will say that they're agnostics. Some will say that they're Wiccan. Wiccan, as in Harry Potter style. Okay? Some of them will venture into New Age spirituality. Some will, of course, explore traditional religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. So, as a family therapist, I realized if I'm going to help people find meaning of life, I have to be prepared. I have to know everything about these religions. Kasi kung sarado akong Katoliko o born-again Christian, sa totoo lang, they're going to rebel. Si Ma'am Angeli talked about training your child, early on. And I really believe that. Train your child early on. Pero sa totoo lang, when they get older, it's very easy to rebel against what you've been trained to, what has been inculcated into you. Usually that's the first things that children will rebel against. Is that a bad thing? Of course not. It's not a bad thing to rebel. It only means that they're trying on new identities, new clothes. Okay? What's more important is that you kind of know what they're going into so that you can accompany them. And then while you accompany them, lumalawak rin yung pag-iisip ninyo. Okay, here's the other thing, independence. Adolescents, they get into independence, of course, one of their tasks is independence. Pero sa totoo lang, because of the internet, children want to be independent early on. They want to explore already. Namumulat na kasi yung mata nila I'll give you an example. Ako, nung time ko, I had to hide my porn. Okay? I had to tapos ang hirap magtago ng porn. Kasi you had to buy the magazine, and then you had to keep it under the mattress or whatever. That was during my time. Okay? Pero ngayon, children don't need to do that. They're supplied with the porn by the internet. And it's as easy as hiding it in a folder. Di ba? A hidden folder. Oh. And then you can go incognito pa, and then nobody knows that these children are getting into porn. So what I mean, dati, yung sexual abuse, kapag na-expose sexually ang mga bata, if we stick to that definition, do you realize that many children now are sexually abused just because they're already sensually exposed by the internet? So here we are, tapos ng Gen Z o papasok na tayo sa Gen Alpha, starting 2010. Have you realized that all of them, by the time they hit their teens, they have already the potential to be sexually addicted? I have to make it quick kasi there's an open forum after this. How about socialization, peer group? Okay. Yung peer group, dati, in person. Pero ngayon, dahil sa internet, ang peer group, pwede nang nasa online. And just because of that, you won't know really who your children are associating with. For example, si Ma'am Angeli was talking about depression, diba? And suicide. And then when I talk to clients now, they actually have discussion groups, chat groups on how to commit suicide. That's very disturbing, diba? And I have to back off from my authoritative stance so that they'll open up and tell me where these chat groups are. Because if I come on too strong, they'll even hide things from me. Sige, I'll go on. And then, of course, there's the booze and the alcohol, and then there's the romance and the sex. Pag-usapan natin ulit ang sex. 50 Shades of Grey. Oh my goodness, that is a reality now. Hindi ba? Dati male or female lang naman or in between. Pero ngayon, the in between has 50 shades or more. And you think it's only about LGBTQ. But you haven't realized the plus is a lot of letters involved. Okay, as much as I know from now, as of this moment, there's LGBTQIAPPK. And what is K? K is kink. Kinky. As in, fetishes. So life is not as complicated anymore, especially with this upcoming generation Alpha. So, let's see. Parents need to gradually decrease control and let go. Of course, children naman, try to become more autonomous. And I'll just run through this na lang very quickly. Positive parent-child relationship. Alam nyo, if the child doesn't think that you have a positive family atmosphere, and the child doesn't feel that he or she belongs in the family, sigurado magkaka-boyfriend o girlfriend ka agad yun. Or magkakaroon ng barkada yan. Kaya the lesson here is the family has to be likable. Okay? I don't place too much premium on love. Kasi you can find love anywhere eh. Pero first of all, the family, the child has to like being in your family. Otherwise, it will look for an alternative family. Collaborative decision-making was already discussed kanina. Emotion, conflict management. You have to teach children early on how to manage their emotions. Structured, consistent discipline. Ang ibig rin sabihin nito, both parents have to be on the same page. Okay? Hindi pwede yung isa konsentidor, tapos yung isa stricto. That won't work. They have to be on the same page. And then positive role models. And this is very difficult, no? Kasi we lack positive role models eh. Pero we have to supply them with positive role models. There's much to say about that. And effective communication, which is, of course, listen, listen, listen. Okay? Before I end, I want to say something rin, kasi of course, I'm a psychiatrist and clinical psychologist. Importante na meron kayong alam tungkol sa depression and anxiety, including self-injury. Okay? I'll tell you a little bit about self-injury. When people cut themselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to die. It means two things. Either they're feeling too much emotion and walang outlet, so they just have to cut themselves para at least yung emotional pain maging physical pain. The other thing is, sometimes they become very emotionally numb. Wala na silang maramdaman because of the depression. And that's a terrible thing, not to feel anything. So they would rather cut themselves para at least meron silang physical pain na maramdaman. And you know what? If you take away the self-injury, the chance for them to commit self-injury, baka doon sila mag-suicide kasi wala na silang outlet. So you know, there has to be a thin line to distinguish suicidal ba siya despite the self-injury o self-injury lang yun. Okay, there's much to say, pero of course, there's still a lot of wisdom to be heard from the other speakers. Thank you very much, and God bless all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Randy. That was a very eye-opening talk. We appreciate all the things you shared. In fact, if I may get the ball rolling, we have some questions regarding, to begin with, things you said. You mentioned certain parenting styles and suggestions on how to be able to deal with these problems in the different stages of our children. No? Pero I was wondering, a number of these have been tried and true methods in terms of being good parents. I was wondering how would you be able to bring up the new techniques, new methods that are being promoted now that supersedes previous parenting ways? Because I think that would also help. Because a lot of our parents know that and admit na kulang ako sa maybe time, physically being there, more open communication. But how about the newer things that are that hindi naman tricks, no, but very very powerful, very effective new methodologies of paano maging magulang?
Sige, there are two things I want to share. One is that hindi ba ang turo sa atin may apat na parenting styles, yung authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and also uninvolved. And we're supposed to fit in one category. But you know, from doing family therapy, I realized it's not about choosing one category. It's about flexing on what is needed at that time. So there might be times that I should be authoritative. There should be times that I should be permissive. There should be times that I should be uninvolved. You know. So if you say that you're one type of parent and you're not flexing with the need of the moment, then you are a rigid parent. Okay. The second thing, is there a new method? Walang new method pero I'll just say, ngayon, ang importante is to immerse yourself into the life of your child. Kasi you have to know kung ano yung gusto niya, kung ano yung ayaw niya. So in a way, you're being a friend, even as a parent. so that yung lines of communication are already open. Kasi usually we try to open lines of communication when it's already too late. Eh, ba't pa mag-open sa'yo? You haven't built up that relationship. Yeah. Oh, one more thing, I have to squeeze this in. One more thing. Sa totoo lang, your parenting style is also very influenced by the way you were brought up yourself by your own parents.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to say is, learn from the mistakes of your own parents in their own parenting. Marami silang pagkakamali, learn from them. Don't go the opposite way. You know, go the middle way, because any extreme in parenting is probably wrong.
It's true. That's true, Doctor. No, I think ako naman ang question ko kay Doctor, paano hindi ko yata po kakayanin pag nakita ko na may 2 boys, may tinatagong porn. Pero before you answer me and try to help me get over that, no, ngayon pa lang dapat alam ko na po. I'd like to call in, of course, our esteemed speakers also to join us in our open forum. May I call in, of course, Miss Wilma, Dr. Wilma, sorry, Dr. Michelle to join us, and of course, Miss Angeli Pangilinan, and have I called everybody?
Yes.
Yes, and Ms. Vilma. Hello, everyone. It's great to have everybody on the screen after all of your very interesting talks. I think if there's anything that, I really, really gained from that, it's really, really very difficult to be a parent. I mean, especially today. And for like this, discussions like this, even with friends, really, really help. So I think pati yung communication natin with peers, with other parents, and with experts like you ay napaka-importante. So let's go ahead. I think we've got some questions, DeFort, that have come in from our viewers.
Yes. Well, to begin with, what's your stand? You mentioned that you're not really for corporal punishment anymore. Do I understand it correctly? So it should be more of a kind of positive discipline that was brought up as a term, no? But does that mean na talagang wala nang room for palo or using the belt at times? Or how would you still incorporate that as part of the toolkit of disciplining your kids?
So who would like to answer that about corporal punishment? I know I'd ask Anjali one time in my son's preschool. Actually, I had a co-parent, and she had these like Christian. They said it was a paddle, like it gave you sort of, it had like readings on it, and then he just kind of went to supposedly use it. I don't know if you've ever come across that. Have you?
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I will tell you that initially in our earlier years, as we reconnected and we renewed our faith in Jesus in 1985, and all kinds of people were saying, no, you should still like spoil the rod, spare the child. So dapat talaga daw, because Gary was belted when he was a kid. I mean. So there were initial times, where Gary would do it, but then later on, it goes contrary to everything that Jesus was. He said love, diba? So how can you show love through your child? It's punishment. Discipline is different from punishment. So eventually it became withholding. You withhold certain privileges that they have. You take away their mobile phone, or earlier on in Paolo, you take away their PS3s or their video games for 2 days, 3 days, or whatever. So I would say no to corporal punishment, no to physical hurting. Like I said, the spiritual should be stronger than, and I feel that withholding privileges would be discipline. And I'm totally against violence in any form.
Yes, and you really have to be consistent, in everything, even with the children. I mean, if you see something on television and violent and tell them that's not the way you do it, you don't hurt them because it confuses them, right? So
Yes.
I understand exactly what you mean. Any other speaker?
Let me qualify that in the earlier years of the life of Pao and Gab, they were belted,
Yeah.
and then we realized mali, so for me, others would disagree, but I totally disagree.
I think as parents, we should also, siguro we need other people to be able to tell us na, if you made a mistake, it's okay. No? Parang lahat naman tayo magdadaan dyan.
I do not believe in punishment. I believe in discipline.
Yes.
Discipline them. How do you discipline them? Face the wall. I mean, that's withholding time, right? That's withholding a privilege.
Yeah,
Instead of playing, Gab was facing the wall.
I know, I've done that, but my son always says he needs to use the bathroom. So he gets away. So, they're really smart kids these days. But would anybody else like to comment on that, or should we move on to another question?
Maybe for Save the Children, I think our stance has always been clear about this from the very beginning. So we're really against all forms of physical and humiliating punishment. So we're against corporal punishment. For us, this is a violation of children's rights. And we do understand that we were raised by parents, and in this kind of discipline. But this is something that we can always change. No, we can decide to choose another way of disciplining children, because there are studies that support that practicing corporal punishment is not really beneficial to children. No, it has a negative impact on them. No, so if there's evidence supporting that, then why are we not trying to find other ways of disciplining children without having to use violence? So we see the connection of, kasi di ba we want lipunan, a society that's violence free, where we all feel safe, and where are we going to start working on that, towards that goal? You have to start with breaking that kind of cycle, that kind of thinking in the home, na okay lang manakit ng weaker person if we're the more powerful one, So it's something that we need to think about and challenge ourselves about. We don't go out there judging parents for having done this, because our parents, they were just doing what they think was right. At that time, they're products of that time, diba, of their time. But now we know better, and so we need to challenge ourselves to find better ways of doing things.
My follow up to that. Let's say, so, of course, walang palo, walang ganyan. But then, how about earlier you were saying about raising your voice? I mean, there's especially for smaller children, kasi you kind of want to give the element of matakot sila, diba? What about raising voices? How high can I go? No, I'm just kidding.
Pero sa amin, for example, sa positive discipline, pinopromote din namin yung wag nating takutin. We don't need children to follow us out of fear. Parang it's not the right motivation, right, for them to do the right things. So it's avoid causing fear then sa mga bata. So it's really, I know it's challenging and it will require a lot of time and effort from parents, but I think children deserve that. And in the training that we do for parents, we talk a lot about this, because what we have realized is a lot of parents are already doing things like this. So positive discipline techniques are totally not new. Yes. So we just encourage parents to do more of that, and slowly change the practice, na kinagis na nila at ginagawa nila.
Can I share something about that?
Yeah.
I have to let you know, guys, that maybe 25 years ago, you really have to get involved with your children, because I heard this horrible music from a video game that Gabrielle at the age of 8 was really playing, and I watched the game. It was a motorcycle race, because nothing like all those violent games were not allowed. But guess what? This motorcycle race encouraged the player to run over the grandmother.
Oh my God! Okay.
And then it's called road rash. And then they're laughing. And the music was so horrible. So I decided, let's see what's this music. So we went to the second stage where it said, attach the music. The fifth song was Last Train to Satansville. This was supposedly a safe video game. So I'm sorry, Wilma, you know, my husband's the UNICEF ambassador, but he wasn't then. And you know what happened? I screamed at the top of my voice, called everybody, and I said, cancel all of this. Cancel. Throw all of these games. I was screaming because I was so stressed. I said, I watched those. I bought those games. I made sure there was Gran Turismo, you know, they were all basketball or volleyball. And here you are, a motorcycle race with all the evil inside it. So we have to be vigilant. I think vigilance is the most important thing right now. Know those apps that your children are because I screamed, and I really screamed. But you know what I got out of that screaming at that time? Because I was really out of control, because I was shaking. I said, oh my God. Gary came in, Paolo, Gab, they were all like little boys. I said, get all those games. Get, you know, I was really screaming. And Paolo and Gab, they got all their games, and, you know, and I started looking at them, and I said, all these ugly things, you know. And at the end of the day, once in a while, you know, you really lose your temper. Because at that point, you know, Last Train to Satansville is the music that my 8-year-old is attaching to the game. My goodness, I said, what else are in these games? You know, and today, it's not just games. Tama si Dr. Randy. It's out there. It's really, I mean, and I appreciate the fact, Dr. Randy, that you said that you cannot just be a psychiatrist giving out, you know, Seroquel or whatever. The psychology and the foundational roots of their childhood. You know, even when we relinquish them to their teachers for 8 hours or 7 hours. Can you imagine my son, Paulo, sending me a letter saying, I'm so sorry, Mama. I know that, you know, I made a mistake. And my teacher is right. I am bulok.
Yes.
My teacher said I'm bulok, and I really am bulok. Imagine, if I did not go to the principal's office, if I was just one of those parents who didn't care, you can imagine. So talagang yung balancing a mental health patient with the doctor and the parenting through the nurturing, the hugging, the listening, the understanding, and not being prescriptive. Kasi tayo mga parents were always prescriptive. We tell them what to do. But they're actually saying something that they want you to hear.
That's true.
Maybe in terms of what you mentioned in connection with that, another thing that's a real concern nowadays is also cyberbullying and bullying even in schools face to face. No, so maybe would you be able to give us some problem solving tips on how to deal with these kinds of bullying?
Maybe able to help.
I think I have the most bullied son on the internet. You know, Gab really went into major mental health because when he had a divorce, you know, it was a mistake. But he kept quiet. The problem was he just went silent. My tip is ignore. Ignore. Because if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. So if reading all of those, you know, troll issues, number one, we know in these elections, trolls were paid and all that, but I would say ignore. I used to tell Martin Rivera, Mart, can you see there are only 3 followers of that person? Mm-hmm. So when you answer back, that's the first thing I look. Who is this person? When you answer that person and he only has 2 or 3 followers, you just validated his trolling. So I tell celebrities and my children, do not answer back. Number one, bless them back. Sometimes I say, God bless you. Because you know what? What you sow, you reap. They are provoking you. And I have to tell you, when you are a mental health patient, triggers are all over the place. The word trigger is so important because sometimes you're provoking on your children. You don't know you're already triggering them and you're still talking. So as a parent, you should recognize the triggers of your children. Note to self, because my kids have mental health issues because they were bullied. Imagine my other son, my daughter Kiana, she was bullied because she's the daughter of Gary V. So because when she was taking children's church ever since Sunday school, she would memorize songs that had all the books in the Bible, whatever. So one teacher told her, Miss Valenciano, say all the Bible chapters in the New Testament, in front of 40 classmates. She remembered the song. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. She just went to the whole song. But that bullying went on and on and on all their childhood lives. So I've always, a solution, like I said, teach the child in the way she goes. Teach them the word. Because these are things that are priceless, like turning the other cheek. Of course, my son Gabriel, I said, Jesus said, forgive 7 times, 77 times. So that means forgive all the time, even if you don't want to forgive. Because I said, when you forgive, you release yourself. It's not the other person. You're the one who's freed from this rage, You know what God tells me? Smart Alec. But Mama, what if it's 78 times already? But for me, that's a solution. You give them nuggets of the word that will help them. Love thy neighbor as yourself. So even if you love the unlovable, pray for those who persecute you, love your enemies. It's so difficult. Gusto mo nang murahin yung tao online. Be still. God will vindicate you. I just had to teach my kids these things kasi hindi mo makokontrol 98%, 99% of what they go through, diba? So you give them ammunition.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Michelle, would you happen to have any secular approach also in terms of how we can teach our kids to deal with being bullied or being exposed to the dangers of the internet, especially abuse?
I'm not sure if she heard us. Dr. Aguinay, I think she's maybe in the middle of a conversation right now. But are you there? Yes, Dr. Michelle, we were just asking if you want to add anything about...
I would like to add with what Miss Angeli is saying regarding cyberbullying and regarding the influence of the outside world to our kids, no? And in my own observation in the doctoral dissertation that I did, what I realized and what I saw and observed and the results of that is that the parenting and the family dynamics as well as the ability of the parent has to be so solid that even though the outside force, and it has to be very consistent with their relationship and their parenting that they have been doing to their kids, so that if peers, media, anything of the outside would penetrate the kids' world, despite that despite that things will be imperfect, it will still be okay because the parents would have a greater influence in the kids. Mm-hmm. Parang it's going to be a filtering device, that parenting. Na may magkakamali minsan parang tatagilid, okay, mangyayari to, but the end of the day, makikita mo yung relasyon ng parents, that's actually the one binding the child, and that's what's so crucial about parenting. That's it.
Well, Tessa, it looks like our speakers have painted a more hopeful future for our children. Yes. What tips stood out for you?
Well, I think it's what Dr. Randy said, that you kind of have to be flexible. You don't just use one parenting technique, but you use what will work with that particular child. I mean, even all our children, they're all different. So there's, it's not always the one technique that will work for them. So get to know your child. I think somebody said that also, get to know your child. And I guess that's how you'll find out how to raise them. parent them as best you can. But obviously, we'll all still make mistakes. And I was gonna ask si Dr. Dr. Randy, ano bang pwedeng gamot inumin para maging strong parent? Kasi parang with everything we've talked about.
Hindi tataas ang boses masyado.
Yeah, oo, diba? Parang ang dami-daming, there's really a lot for us to navigate. And to overcome. So,
well, since you did ask Dr. Randy, maybe we can ask them to give their final advice to all our parents. Dr. Randy, would you like to start?
Okay. Two things I want to say. One thing is that you only need to be a good enough parent. They'll always tell us there is no manual to parenthood, di ba? So at least we just try our best, and good enough is okay. Okay, as long as we learn from our mistakes. Yeah. So another thing, based on your question is, of course, nakaka-stress talagang parenthood. So it's very important na meron kayong hingahan.
Ayun. Yeah.
Okay. Of course, that can take the form of God. We can pray about it. Secondly, we need people to talk to. Diba? Kasi if we keep it inside, kung ikimkim natin, then tayo naman yung made-depress and ma-anxious. So remember, palaging tinuturo sa airplane, you have to place oxygen first on yourself before placing oxygen on others. Okay? So, yes, the others will have a lot of wisdom to share.
All right. So,
how about Wilma, maybe?
Miss Wilma, your parting shot po then for our parents listening now.
I think I just want to remind parents to be kind to yourselves, because parenting, as Dr. Randy said, it's very challenging. It's not easy. If you decide to change the way you're parenting your kids right now, you will make mistakes along the way, diba? When you do that, just recognize it, forgive yourself, ask for forgiveness from your children, and move on and do something about it, so that you don't have to do that the next time. So you have to be kind to yourselves as well. Nobody's judging you, but we always have to do what's best for our children, and that's yun lang ang ating dapat iniisip, when we're finding ways on how we can discipline children.
If you keep changing, you'll confuse them. If you keep changing your parenting style, they'll just really get confused. But one thing I loved about what you said, say sorry to them too, because we all make mistakes. Some parents don't really feel like they should be saying sorry. Of course, Dr. Michelle, your parting words again.
Despite the digital age, no one can replace parents. It's a guarantee. And I hope that in your homes, the gadgets are not replacing you, because there's no reversing the developmental effects. There's no replacing the relationship and the emotional bonds that we're building with the kids. And then there's no replacing the time you spent together, really connecting, getting to know each other, and engaging with each other. There's no replacing that, and there's no reversing that. So I hope that no matter what age we are, gadgets are there, but we put it not in the center. The technology are our friends, but not the center of our lives. The family, the relationships. And I agree with Ma'am Wilma and Dr. Randy that really being kind to ourselves as parents, being the more aware person and being able to take care of our own well-being will help us navigate all the challenges that parents are actually embarking on now. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. And of course, last but not the least, Ms. Angeli Pangilinan Valenciano, your message to our viewers. Oh, I think you're on mute for the moment. There we are.
My message is this: there is a war to kill our children, to steal our children's destinies. And so I believe, in response to Dr. Randy, I believe there's a difference between excellence and perfection. And we will never be perfect, but being excellent parents, not just enough, pwede na, but being excellence is that being able to say sorry when you're wrong, being able to do the best you can given all the obstacles and the overwhelming sicknesses of God and everything that come your way. You just have to know that when you do your best, you are excellent. and you're able to surmount all these. And for me, I want to have one takeaway for everyone, which is our manual for life is really, for me as a Christian, Bible. Maybe with Muslims it's the Quran, but for me it's the Bible. And there is one verse that tells you what is the armor of God. And simple. In Ephesians 6, it says, protect your mind. It says that with a helmet of salvation. Your chest, breastplate of righteousness, walk in integrity. You know, the belt of truth. Always walk in truth. No white lies, because your children will know when you're lying. The feet, walk with the sandals of peace. Don't fight about ivermectin and vaccination. If your children want to be vaccinated, bahala sila. Kami, we don't want to be vaccinated. That's our choice. But don't fight. Choose your battles. You know, so walk in peace always. And then the right hand, you have, the left hand, you have the shield of faith. Always carry your faith. Always. Faith is your defense. It's a shield. And in your right hand, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. No matter what, when you know the promises of God, you will never fail, because that's the one that you kill the enemy with. You can have your faith, but if you don't know the word, which is the manual for life, you don't want to read it when you're 60. So that's what I tell my kids. Just keep hanging on to the word. So that's my takeaway. And when it comes to principle, when it comes to taste, go with the flow. When your kids like this kind of music, let them be. When it comes to principle, stand firm as a rock. When they tell you, cheat your taxes, don't do that. So that's my last thing. And always, you may always be right. Gary says, you're always right, honey, but you say it at the wrong time. So when you say something right at the wrong time, it still makes it wrong. So don't bother your children when they're watching a basketball championship game, because they'll never listen to you. It's the wrong time, but you're saying you want to tell him the right thing.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much. We really did.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure. Yes.
Yes.
And hopefully, a lot from me, Tessa.
I think I'm going to have to tell my sons that they have Dr. Michelle Aglina to thank for making me watch anime, because I just really was refusing this whole time. But, you know, they're going to have you to thank later on. The fourth?
Yeah, so thank you, Randy, Wilma, Michelle, and Angeli. We're very glad that you joined us today.
We really do appreciate it. Maraming salamat po. And with that...
So again, our speakers are Dr. Randy De Losa, psychiatrist of the Randy De Losa Wellness Center, Wilma Banaga of Save the Children Philippines, Dr. Michelle Alignay, psychologist, and Angeli Pangilinan Valenciano, president of GV Productions Incorporated. And that's a wrap. I'm Fort Gasaran.
And this is Tessa Mauricio Ariola. We'll see you in the next Manila Times Lifestyle Forum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/digital to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Digital Edition.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear pro? Amazing athletes, superstars, and wellness gurus with 100,000 followers. But the truth is, each one of us can live like a pro, even if we're not exactly pros. Imagine you can exercise regularly. You don't need a trainer for that. Know all the healthy cooking tricks, just like pros do, even without a personal chef. You can inspire your team daily, even if you're not a famous coach. And you can motivate yourself as well at the end of the day. Trust us, you can live like a pro anytime you want. You can be a pro mum or dad, a friend, a lover, a partner. And the best part is that you don't need to be a pro to live like one. Choose the healthy way, Becca. Live like a pro.